Here we are for the last episode of Module 7. In this module, we talked about all sorts of things related to production as we prepared all the gear prior to filming and worked through the process of making a short film using anamorphic lenses. We looked at how to achieve critical focus, learned about focus shift, and the mysterious diopters. In this episode, I'm going deeper into in-camera stabilization, which Lumix, our sponsor, yay, does a great job by offering options tailored specifically for anamorphic lenses. You don't need to be into anamorphics to know what rolling shutter is. Rolling shutter means that each frame is captured not all at once, but with a scan of the sensor over a short period of time. The result is if you have fast motion, the image gets distorted and it looks like it's made of jello. Rolling shutter is even worse with anamorphics because the effect is doubled, or whatever your squeeze ratio, after you de-squeeze the image. And this idea that the de-squeeze from an anamorphic lens increases the warping of the image is a key concept when we're talking about in-camera stabilization. Let's first think of a handheld camera and the different ways that we can shake it. I can translate it sideways, or up and down, or back and forth. I can tilt it, pan it, and roll it. If I'm hand holding it, I'm likely to be doing all of these in different intensities, all at the same time. And this is what in-camera stabilization aims to correct. The camera has an internal gyroscope that is analyzing all of your human jittering and passing this information in real time to the sensor, which is working hard to counter all or most of it. So let's look at the sensor while we shake the camera and figure out what kind of adjustments we need. X and Y movements counter horizontal and vertical translation. For obvious reasons, we can't have a Z-axis stabilization. Come on, we spent a ton of time talking about flange distance and critical focus. We don't want to move the sensor in the Z-axis. Pitch corrects for tilt, while yaw corrects for panning, and roll corrects for rolling. And just to clarify, all of these examples are extremely exaggerated in scale to make the adjustments more visible. Now we understand the dance the sensor is doing to compensate for our human shakiness, and turn this mess into this usable shot. Most cameras do this for spherical lenses, but we're here to talk about anamorphics. Let's first look at the worst thing that default stabilization does for anamorphics, the roll axis adjustment. If I have an anamorphic lens, I'm moving my camera, and the sensor is trying to counter my roll, what happens is the sensor is going to misalign itself from the anamorphic squeeze, leading us to skewed images, much like bad rigging or rolling shutter, or as we'll see in Module 8, like the mesmerizer. So the first thing in-camera anamorphic stabilization has to do is to shut off the roll axis, period. It is better to have the image do this than this. Pitch and yaw adjustments also affect the results with anamorphic lenses, so they have their strengths tweaked according to the amount of squeeze applied by the lens. That is why it's important to pick the closest value to your lens squeeze when setting up stabilization. Yaw happens on the horizontal axis, so it's not as bad as pitch, which can create some pretty intense warping of the image. Again, these are exaggerated samples, but you get the idea. That is, of course, if the camera knows that we are using an anamorphic lens, and we set that in the camera menus. If the camera doesn't even have the option to deal with anamorphics for stabilization, I would recommend turning off all in-camera stabilization. The part of stabilization that works best for anamorphics are the X and Y translation axes, since these won't introduce any warping to the image. Still, that is not perfect, and there are a couple things to watch out for. If we're using a lens that has tight coverage, for example something that almost vignettes on full frame, having the stabilization on will lead to moments in which vignette is very clear on one side of the frame and completely gone on the other side. Stabilization will also make your flares dance. That's a dead giveaway that anamorphic footage had in-camera stabilization, or any footage had in-camera stabilization. The flares don't move like the rest of the image, and instead display a jittery attitude. The only way to have stable flares is by turning off in-camera stabilization and using a gimbal or a Steadicam to stabilize not just the sensor, but the entire capture system, the camera and the lens. If you don't have flares coming up in your shots all the time, you can keep stabilization on, and most people won't be able to tell from the results. Since all of the previous adjustments are made automatically by the camera, the only thing that we have to get right is the focal length that we are stabilizing. The amount of movement from the sensor is directly related to the focal length that we are using. That's why in the prep day, we registered all the lenses in our kit into the stabilization menu. Along the process of filming, we adjusted the stabilization every time we had a lens swap. You should always put in the exact focal length of your lens in this setting. Crop factor does not matter. If I have a 45mm lens like the one that we're using in our short, even if I am filming in Super 35, I must not do the crop math and input 60mm into the stabilization settings. Go with 45mm. The only exception is if you are using a focal reducer or a teleconverter, also known as an expander. In those cases, multiply the focal length of the lens by the magnification of the adapter. Usually 0.72 for focal reducers and 1.4 for expanders. Continuing the example for our 45mm lens, we would input 45 times 0.72, which equals 32.4 if using a focal reducer, or 45 times 1.4, turning into a 63mm lens if using an expander. The last things left in the menu for us to talk about are the E-Stabilization and the Boost IS settings. Both of them involve cropping into the image a little bit to enhance stabilization results. For some people, that's a big no-no. If you're in this category, just keep these settings off. If you frequently find yourself in situations where you can't do much better to keep the camera steady, like a music concert for example, and you really want the footage to turn out usable, then switch these on. The big difference between them is E-Stabilization will use a smaller portion of the sensor to improve the results of X and Y movements, while Boost IS tries to give you a locked-off shot when you don't have a tripod. The short version is if your shot needs any movement, don't go for Boost IS, as the sensor stabilization will fight your attempts to move. That usually results in image jumps as the sensor accepts your movement and then tries to lock off again. Beyond all that the camera is doing for you, you still have a wide array of tools to help you make your shots smoother. Besides the obvious handheld use, in-camera stabilization can be used in conjunction with gimbals, easy rigs, and all sorts of contraptions that help you move the camera. I just recommend turning stabilization off when you're on sticks. And with this, we reach the end of Module 7. We have gone through preparing for the film, ensuring our best focus performance, using diopters to boost the anamorphic look, and now having the most stable images before heading into post-production. That's the point of Module 8, where we will take the footage into the editing bay, and I'll walk you step by step to set up your timeline, de-squeeze, and handle all sorts of issues that might come from set. Best of luck in your productions, and make good use of all the lessons you learned here for filming with Anamorphics. If you have a project that you are proud of, please share it here with us. See you soon. Zit de verder, out.